Food allergies. Are there more food allergies than there used to be? Are we putting allergens in our food? What's the deal with the future as it pertains to agriculture and food allergies affecting the consumption of our products? I'm talking about that with an expert in this episode of The Business of Agriculture. Are you looking for productive efficiencies in growing higher yielding, better performing crops? New Fields Ag provides a complete portfolio of biological products focused on you, the farmer. Visit newfieldsag.com for more information to help you farm better. Hey there, welcome to another fantastic episode of The Business of Agriculture. Got an interesting one for you today because the business of agriculture ultimately should be about the business of food. Yes, we also do fuel, and we also do fiber, but ultimately the bulk of our stuff that we make goes to consumption to keep us all fed. Okay. You have seen this. You have seen that when you go through a buffet line that says there may be some sort of product in this food. And maybe you've been on an airplane like me and you can't get peanuts because now allegedly peanut allergies are going to kill people at 30,000 feet. I brought on this guy to my Business of Ag Success group. His name is Dylan McDonnell. And I said, you know what? I like what you're talking about. Would you come on and do a show with me about this? Dylan is the founder and the CEO of Foodini, like Houdini, but it's Foodini. They are a dietary intelligence company providing ingredient transparency to consumers. Dylan, you'll notice, has a little bit of an accent. He's not originally from the United States of America, but he lives here now. And he got into this because he himself suffers from some food allergies. Of course, the first question I even brought up when he did my Business of Ag Success Group meeting, I said, hey, listen, maybe I'm the skeptical one here. I think this is a little bit overblown. I really don't believe that we're out here trying to choke people off with allergic reactions to what we produce. Well, it actually goes a little bit deeper than that. So, Dylan, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Damian. Great to be here.
The Foodini, the company that you have, dietary intelligence company providing ingredient transparency. What's that mean?
That means essentially we bridge the communication gap between food service and restaurants and consumers. So we typically partner with restaurants, food service companies, ingest all their menu, recipe, product data, tag it with the correct allergy and dietary information, and then power a personalized ordering experience for consumers based on their over 150 different allergies and diets that they could have. So think of it as complete transparency for the consumer that's personalized for them.
I said, I'll play the skeptic here. I'll just start right off. Is it a symptom of an affluent country? In the United States of America, we've got a pretty affluent customer base. We're not like starving sub-Saharan Africa where we're just, by God, whatever calories I can get. So we can afford to pretend that we're gluten intolerant, and we can afford that somehow lactose bothers us because then we can buy a product that caters to us and tells us that we are special. And I know that there are truly food allergies. I have a relationship, one of my nieces, that certain tree nuts, truly, she swells up and might choke. But also, I think that there's the other side of it where it's just like having the latte frappuccino personalized to you at Starbucks is all about making yourself special. Give me some clarity on this. Give our listeners some clarity on this.
Listen, I think no one was more skeptical than myself when I started on this journey as well. Like I said, I was diagnosed as a celiac when I was 10 years old. At the time in rural Ireland, I was probably the only celiac for 100 miles. No one had heard the word. The word gluten wasn't even in the vocabulary at this point in time. You know, most people probably thought I was making it up as well, just to be difficult, or there was something, crazy about me. But when I the penny dropped for me I started the journey just after a lot of incidences when I was just constantly getting the wrong food, wrong information. I was like, how is it still just so hard to get clarity as to what is in this dish or not? And then I started digging into the numbers. And so if we're speaking data-wise, Damian, you have 33 million Americans that have a diagnosed food allergy. That's nearly 1 in 10.
That's 1 in 10.
Diagnosed, and that's diagnosed.
Yeah, right? So about a country of about 340 million. You just told me 33 million. So 1 in 10.
1 in 10 diagnosed food allergy.
In Americans diagnosed. And by the way, going back to your previous, so for the person that says, hey, man, this is all new to me. I'm out here. And celiac, 0.7% of the American population, last time I checked my numbers, just under 1%, have celiac disease, which truly does cause sickness. And I don't know about death, but it definitely can cause severe sickness if you ingest gluten. And this became a thing 10, 12, 13 years ago. The whole movement against gluten, to where then everyone, not everyone, a third of the population decided they were gluten intolerant. And I think that would almost piss off somebody like you. You truly have celiac disease. Gluten really does cause you problems, as opposed to just the bored housewife from the suburbs that met her friend at yoga who decided they both were gluten intolerant over frappuccinos after yoga, which is all bullshit. There's a real and there's made up, right?
I would say there's three buckets, right? To your point, there is the like properly allergic, medically diagnosed. It is a problem if you consume this one. Then you have the I notice when I eat this type of food, I feel unwell. It's not celiac disease. It's not medical, but it makes me sick. It makes me bloated. It makes me whatever. I do not feel good when I eat this. And then you have the third bucket, which is the I've decided I'm gluten free. Yeah. But I think like where I'm like jumping back to the numbers for a second, right? You've 33 million allergy, 50 million Americans fall in the bucket of intolerance, which is that middle bucket I said where it disagrees with them, but it's not a medical allergy.
Yeah.
And then you've 70 million lifestyle, vegan, vegetarian, keto, paleo, low FODMAP, low carb, what have you. And so I think it's what's interesting and like where I think industry is finally getting to is whilst traditionally, and I would have been the same, the people who kind of had the med up stuff, they're annoying more than anything, right? They're like, oh my God, but the reality is like, if you look at consumer trends and the data, this is the new reality we live in. Like people are getting more and more and more picky and choosing with a lot more care what they put into their bodies. And that is, look at the last decade. It's only growing year on year on year, and it's not going to stop. So I think there's like, as an industry, we can say, oh, they're still just annoying, we're going to ignore them, or we can recognize that there's a pattern here and that we're either going to evolve with it or maybe get left behind.
First off, I love that the numbers and also the frankness I mean, there's probably someone that says Mason's got a food allergy guy in here. Oh God, this guy's going to be all these. You're not the touchy-feely. You're not telling us we're all killing you. And, and there's always this tendency, because, we get pretty defensive in agriculture, that here's another movement coming at us to either extort money or tell us we're doing something wrong or bitch that we're harming them. And, nobody out here in agriculture is like saying, well, screw them. I hope it harms them. No. I mean, it's not that way. But there's some real things here. So I love your numbers. Let's hit those again. 33 million, 1 in 10 in America have an actual diagnosed food allergy. 50 million are of the type that, disagrees.
I call it intolerance. It's like they do not feel well after they eat a certain food.
And that's real. I mean, there's folks that say like, God, I just can't eat that. And it's not even heartburn or whatever. It could be that. It could be, it gives me the diarrhea. I mean, I get sluggish, whatever. And that's fine because, the old thing we got told as kids, you are what you eat. The 70 million lifestylers, that, like you said, you're talking almost a fourth of the population there, right? 1/5 of the population, let's call it. And that is, they can afford. Like I said, it's the bored housewife that is from the affluent suburbs that goes to yoga, and then her and her yoga partner over frappuccinos then decide, I need to be keto, or I need to be this, or I'm going to only have the citrus diet, and those things have been around for a long time. I mean, I was a kid, and I remember the grapefruit diet, or the celery thing, or whatever the hell it is. Those are, like you said, as silly as they might be, and even you who works in this space, you can call it silly, but as you pointed out, it's a business. There is a business opportunity here for agriculture, food retailers, food processors to play into that.
Yeah, I think, I suppose it really depends on the consumer. You have a lot of like really health conscious people who follow it they want to get bigger, they want to get skinnier, it's health related. You have the obviously environmental reasons. People make decisions for whatever reasons they want. That's their own business. I'm not here to judge or say whether we make no recommendations. about what anyone should eat, and I would never try to. I'm not a medical professional. But you made a very valid point in terms of, you know, unfortunately, certain consumers who have the problem come at it from through the lens of, oh, evil industry, evil restaurants. Why aren't they telling me? Why isn't there transparency? Why isn't there clarity? And the reality is, I have so much empathy for restaurants and food service and ag and everyone, because this is really hard to do. If we could just wave a wand and give everyone the information they needed, of course industry would do it. But the reality is the data is so fragmented, top down, from farm to manufacturer to supplier to distributor to restaurant to kitchen to consumer, that to actually track this accurately all the way down is hard. And I would argue nearly, to do it at scale, very, very difficult before technology has kind of got to where it is today. So it's not, I don't look at it as good or bad or whatever. I look at it as there's now an opportunity to bridge this communication gap to hopefully make it, restaurants a safer and food service a safer environment, and protect them as well from lawsuits and different things that can happen when mistakes do happen, and they are happening. And in tandem, to bring these consumers back into play and back out and back dining out, where now a lot of them are too scared or nervous, or they've been burned so many times that they won't go out. And that ultimately is hurting restaurants' bottom line as well, because this market won't go out.
Yeah. I want to dig into then like you said, the response, or what we do to admit and accept this, and then how we move on and navigate this. Before I do that, I want to tell you about my friends at Harvest Returns. My friend Chris Raleigh founded this company a long time ago because he realized there's agricultural business people that need funding, and their needs maybe don't fit your traditional bank template. Okay. It doesn't mean you're sunk. There's all kinds of capital out there that can help you, and it's at places like Harvest Returns. Harvest Returns, basically, he found a bunch of investors and said, let's fund these agricultural entities. So if you want to take your agricultural operation, maybe it's a processing plant, maybe it's a farm and ranch, maybe it's something in the middle of all of this in agriculture, and you need funding, you can turn to Harvest Returns. They understand that every agribusiness is different. They've got a pool of investors that can do creative financing options to help you get the capital you need to reach your goals. If you want to learn more about this, go to harvestreturns.com to learn more about how you can get started with growing your operation today. That's harvestreturns.com. Okay, so the problem that you seek to solve is, and you suffered it from yourself, you're gluten intolerant, and you're like, that became the biggie, right? So we see this, okay, gluten free, et cetera, but there's a whole bunch of steps, as you pointed out, from the farm to the processing, transportation, and then some stuff gets refined to a certain level of product, and it goes to another place. And there's a lot of steps that go on between the farm and the dinner plate. That's one of my gripes about the ag people. The farmer only gets 14 cents of every food dollar. I'm like, that's because there's 9 different places that food goes between your farm and the dinner plate where it gets touched and has value add. A lot of room to introduce contaminants, or a lot of room to introduce allergens into there. And that's the challenge that we face, right?
Yeah, it's certainly one of them. And I think that, a lot of this requires consumer education as well. What I always say to consumers is, what you have to understand is there's never a guarantee. There's no guarantee. A restaurant from top to bottom, you can make as many promises and take all the best steps as you can. There's still human error involved. A chef can still get out of the wrong side of bed and put a bag of nuts into a salad that's not meant to be in. And, there's no real way of mitigating against that, crazy human error that can occur. Right. But it's how do we build as robust processes as possible, and provide as much training and transparency to consumers as possible to let them make an informed decision based on their risk appetite. You have people with allergies who, at the tiniest speck of cross-contaminant, can have them on the ground, and you have others who need, a full peanut, and you have others. So that there are levels within it, and so ultimately a consumer needs to, make a decision on their own risk profile. But giving them the information they need is what, in the most transparent and accurate fashion, is what enables them to make that informed decision.
Mm-hmm. So, we're going to start at the basics here. You think that the allergies or even the intolerances are certainly not go away, and then as long as we have an affluent consumer base, there's going to be the lifestylers. So to cater to this, or at least work around it so you don't. On the one hand, there's lawsuits. My kid almost died because there was this stuff in the food. There's the inconvenience, or as you said, sometimes it's just we've all been there. I remember going to a restaurant in Indianapolis once, and I said, "Oh my God, I can never go there again," because I was almost ill afterward, and I don't know that I have any food allergies, but it was just because whatever. If I had a food allergy, I would never go to that place again, and that's where I think you're talking about. We're mitigating the reasons to have the consumer not come back.
Yeah. So the way we, and again, our biggest challenge as a company is obviously just education. This is kind of a newish space where, we're not replacing an existing tech stack. It's a lot about just trying to inform restaurants about the opportunity here.
Right.
So let's go back to the numbers. You've half the population have an allergy or dietary requirement, give or take. The majority of those people will always check menus before they go out because they have to. I can't go to a sandwich shop that doesn't have a gluten-free bread option. What am I going to eat? The lettuce? It doesn't work, right? So I'm always going to do my research in advance. If I can't find the information, I don't go. If I don't go, my family don't go, my friends don't go, my co-workers don't go. We're not doing the Christmas team lunch there. That restaurant now has lost me and my circle.
Yeah.
And so it's a revenue loss in one way, but it's a huge revenue opportunity for the restaurants that do this well and provide that transparency to the consumer. Number one. Number two, they're the most loyal consumer because they've been burnt so many times and find it so hard to find places. When they do go and do have a good experience, we go back again and again and again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
Three is operations. Currently, your staff are the people answering these questions. You have a new part-timer. He started last week. He's 17 years old. He doesn't know about food allergies. He doesn't care about food allergies. He hasn't been trained on food allergies.
Right.
He doesn't know anything about the allergens in any of the menu items. And you're expecting him to be an expert on every ingredient and every allergen and every menu item when a consumer comes in. And we wonder why there's so many lawsuits. Right. There's been a 400% increase in lawsuits in the last number of years around food allergies. And a lot of high-profile deaths as well, unfortunately, Damian, not just sicknesses. There's been some bad ones. And so for operators, we see about a 60% reduction in the number of questions being asked to staff. And so obviously line moving faster, just operationally more efficient. And the result of that is a dramatic reduction in the number of mistakes as well, because the source of truth is answering the question, not the part-time staffer. And then there's a lot around data and menu optimization and helping restaurants understand, here's a gap in your menu and you should add a product that, caters to keto because you've all these keto people coming in, but you've nothing for them on the menu, and
right.
Marketing, etc. So the data does, for the savvy operators, the data does play a pretty compelling part in menu optimization and marketing as well.
Okay.
So there's a lot of what I'm trying to say is above and beyond, and you're probably going to talk to regulation at some point during this, but above and beyond just regulation and compliance, the benefits to doing this, I believe, are massive.
Yeah. So you're essentially your pitch at Foodini would be to, I assume, a restaurateur says, "Hey, you've got 7 restaurants in whatever the town is. We're going to help you so that again you don't have those customers that never will come there because they, their little kid is sick, has a food allergy or the one person in the family. Like you said, if you've got one person in the family, you lose the whole family. Or in your case, you're a young guy on Friday night when you get done at work, and then you're supposed to go and drink beer and have chicken wing. Wait a minute, you're Irish. Go and eat potato fingers. See how I did that right there?
Listen, potato fingers, Guinness, and whiskey. There's nothing wrong with that trio.
There's no gluten, and there's no gluten in any of that, right?
Sounds like a good Friday night to me. It's Friday today, right?
It is Friday today while we're recording, yes, but the show releases on a Monday. Doesn't matter. Speaking of this show, you might notice I'm wearing Acres TV hat. You can check out the Business of Agriculture wherever you get your audio podcasts. It's on all the platforms essentially, or all the ones that matter. And you can always find my stuff at DamianMason.com. And obviously, I'm very active on social, but also on my YouTube channel, which is growing. I started putting effort into it this year, 2025. And man, we've really got some nice following, got a whole bunch of new subscribers. So do that. But also, if you're already subscribed to my YouTube channel, if you aren't new, subscribe. If you are, you can also check out my show at Acres TV. I've been on there for several years now. So if you want to kick around and see what's going on over at Acres TV, my show is there. So I can see the reason Meaning, if I'm a savvy restaurateur, I want to have somebody like your organization come in and help me be able to divulge this. Now, the tough part is if I'm in a restaurant business, I'm getting stuff from 6 different suppliers. How the hell? Sometimes I don't know. I mean, I'm going through and looking at my menu, and the last thing I'm thinking of is, oh, one of the ingredients for one of those menu items, and I've got 47 things on my menu. It comes from this place and this place. I mean, they're kind of in a tough situation, Dylan.
That's why we exist. Literally, you couldn't have articulated it better. The main reason restaurants haven't done this, other than the fact that the data didn't exist, is because it's hard. They have 101 things that they're trying to do every day: keep the place open, get staff in, serve good quality food, provide a good experience. Allergens is one of these things that is, if it was me, it'd be so far down the list of priorities. I'm trying to run a business here.
Yeah, I mean, my dishwasher got arrested last night. He's not showing up. For God's sakes, a pipe burst. I got a bitchy bachelorette party that's coming in at 3 o'clock, and they're drunk. And I mean, I'm thinking of all the things that a restaurant has. The last thing that's on my radar is what's 100%. A trace ingredient in the 14th item on page 2 of my menu.
100%, but that's why we exist. So we built the company to be able to make this easy for restaurants and to be able to do it in the background for them without them really even needing to do much. So we plug into the various systems that they have. So we'll pull menu from POS. We'll pull, if they have an inventory or recipe management system, we'll get all the inventory and products from that. If they don't, we'll take it from their invoices. So we'll pull the invoices and we'll take the SKU numbers. Now we can pull from, because we have a SKU number, we can now pull that from the distributor. Now we have the exact product. Now we have the exact ingredients. Now we have the exact allergens. So we can do, it's all tech. So we can do all of that in the background without a restaurateur needing to pull his hair out and, exactly as you said, try and analyze 40 different forms of documents. We generally will have a few questions. There's almost always some gaps in initial onboarding. Something's missing. A recipe doesn't look quite right. There's always a few things we find. Bang that out in an hour onboarding call where we run through those questions, get that clarity, and then we have our source of truth, and then we keep it up to date over time as well. So when things change,
your customers are restaurants mostly.
Mostly restaurants, hotels, bars. We've started working with stadiums, schools, and colleges as well. We can work anywhere food is served. We can work on airlines. We can work on cruise ships. We could work in healthcare, aged care, but predominantly restaurants, hotels, stadiums, events, I would say.
Okay, and then the thing is, you name a cruise ship, or usually the cruise ship, by the way, it's not food allergies. It's that sometimes like the plumbing broke on one of those cruise ships, and they were floating around out in the ocean for like 3 days with no power and no plumbing, and they had some toilet issues, but I don't think it was to do with allergies. But yes, that reason right there is one of the many I'll never go on a cruise. Interesting. Okay, so think about this. It's not like this is static. They don't just serve the same food every day. I mean, even in jail, they change the food up. So there's a recurring amount of this. So then does that mean, hey, we're going to change our menu. We're going to add 3 new items. Chef's going to do a special today. It gets pretty complex.
100%. Yeah. And that's honestly, I think, where most of the mistakes happen. Because again, most restaurants today, they try and make some sort of effort to get across this day one. But 6 months in, the recipe changes. The chef decides, you know what? I don't like it without soy sauce. We got to add some soy sauce in there. It needs a bit of flavor, whatever. So the chef just goes and does that, but tells no one.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden that dish contains soy and gluten. And the wait staff are answering, maybe the wait staff did a great initial training because the restaurant, again, cared up front.
Is there gluten in soy sauce?
There is gluten in soy sauce, yeah.
Which is an interesting thing. There ain't no gluten in soy.
Yeah, but no, there is in soy. There's tamari sauce that's gluten-free, but soy sauce contains gluten. And so all of a sudden, this staff member hasn't been informed, is answering questions. Last week it was gluten-free and soy-free. This week it's not, but he has no idea. And it's not even his fault. He hasn't been informed. And again, it's because there's no central source of truth that's being maintained. And you need it, it's a culture thing as much as anything. Like, that chef didn't do that to kill someone. That chef did that because
he wanted to change the flavor. He went in there and took a spoonful. He took a spoonful out and said, "You know what? This is lacking something." And
And so it's a culture thing. Honestly, it's well, it comes back to education awareness. We're trying to explain to industry like how many of these mistakes are happening and the consequence of them, both financially and brand wise, when these mistakes happen. The amount of settlements going on in the background, obviously they try and brush as many of them under the carpet as they can, is insane, and it's so avoidable. And it's better for the customer and it's better for your venue. And again, if you're trying to, I would say anyone who listens and says, I hate technology, I want to do this myself in my spreadsheet and I'm going to do it manually, go for it. Like anything is better than nothing. But unfortunately, so many restaurants do nothing or very little. And like I said, our whole pitch is we will come in, we're not that expensive, and we will streamline this for you, keep it up to date, attract more customers, and make sure that you don't fall into the trap of these mistakes, which are killing people in restaurants.
Dylan, I want to get the reality on the numbers about killing, and I want to get the reality about is the thing worsening, and I want to get the reality about the food. I also want to get to this little spot right here from Redox. Getting the most from your nitrogen is crucial to your success. Redox has a product called RDXN. It's from Redox Bionutrients. It's a unique product that improves nitrogen optimization by 50%. So you're going to reach a situation where you have to reduce your nitrogen inputs in agriculture. It's coming. It's coming because of environmental reasons. It's coming because of regulation. It's coming because we've been over nitrogening for decades. Trust me, we have. You don't have to. You can use products like RDXN and reduce your nitrogen without reducing your yield. Go to redoxgrows.com to find out more. And also, while you're there, vote for RDXN, which was nominated by Farm Journal as a best new product for 2025. That's redoxgrows.com. Check it out. On the on the numbers, let's start with the worsening. It seems like there are more people talking about food allergies. It could just be that thing you talked about, the lifestylers, the 70 million, the 1 in 4, 1 in 5 of our country here, I guess it would be, that are saying this. Is it my perception or is it real that there's more people that are doing this? You already kind of said that because we live in an affluent country and because we got a picky customer, they can do this.
Yeah, exactly. The way I normally articulate it is allergies don't discriminate. In fact, if you look statistically in like a lot of the Black communities and Asian communities, there's like very high like percentage ratios in them of food allergies. Like it doesn't discriminate across race. Like what we see is like genetically, like the Asian population, for example, about 66% of Asian people, according to data, are lactose intolerant. You look at Ireland and Italy, we have the first and second highest rate of celiac disease per head capita in the world. So
Ireland and where else?
Italy is number one, Ireland's number two.
Yeah. And then, of course, you're going to ask a question. All right, Irish ate potatoes for hundreds of years, and that was their staple carbohydrate. I can see where they don't do well with gluten. You say, wait a minute. He said Italy. There are like 60 million people in Italy, and they eat pasta every day. How the hell can we have the highest incidence of celiac disease in a country that literally invented pasta?
Listen, I would love to know. I know the answer on Ireland, and it's exactly what you said. It's linked to the potato famine, and that's apparently the leading theory. Italy, I assume they just ate too much of it, mate. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't have another explanation. But point being, allergies don't discriminate. Lifestyle diets and choices do, and diagnosis does. You need access to medical, to doctors and to the right testing and blah, blah, blah. And that doesn't necessarily, obviously that comes down to affluence in certain ways, right? Like there's countries that don't have the same access to that medical treatment that the US does. And even within the US, that obviously can fluctuate as well. So, allergies don't discriminate. There are certain genetics that come into play in certain regions, and lifestyle diets ultimately trend higher in affluent areas because people have a choice, or they are lucky enough to be able to make a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. So the point you're making is, okay, you're a new American, if you will. That's what they call Canadians that move in from somewhere else.
Well, I was actually born in Philly, believe it or not. So I was Philly until I was 5, and then moved back to Ireland, and I've come back now. So I'm a real American as well.
Yeah, there's some debate as to whether we even really want to have Philadelphia be part of the United States. Actually,
listen, reigning Super Bowl champions, mate. I'll take it.
one of our first capital, right?
Yeah.
So I guess let's kind of think about this. 100 years ago, it could be plausible that we had just as many food allergies. And you talked about the diagnosis, or even then, we've got so much more online. My God, whether you believe it or not, you can go on AI, Google, whatever. And I can tell you that, I'm 56 years old. When I was a little boy, youngest of 9 kids, I mean, they forgot my name most of the time. If I ate something that made me sick, they didn't think, oh, it was the food. I'm sure they probably didn't even know I was sick because there's just so much going on. I can see where we're just better at understanding it now, and we may have had it. Is there the lifestyle thing now? Yes, but there also was just the lack of even awareness or education or whatever a half century or century ago.
Yeah, it's funny. RFK was on talking about literally, it actually, half of what you just said there, it sounds like a soundbite from him last week. So food allergies has now become a priority health issue for the White House for the first time ever. RFK has appeared on a panel for the Food Allergy Fund last week where he made that exact point. He was like, when I grew up, I didn't know, no one had a peanut allergy. He now has 5 kids and 3 of them have peanut allergies, and he has his own theories and theorems around why and where that might have come from. But to your point, I think, yeah, the obvious ones are, one, there just wasn't even like, what, 100 years ago, who would have even said the word food allergy? Like, as a concept, I'm sure it didn't even exist. There was no education around it. There was no way of testing for it or knowing if it was even a thing. There's a genetic piece, obviously, but I think the other part does come down to a lot of the quality of food as well. Like, I'm pretty bullish that, unfortunately, a lot of the, ultra processed foods and whatnot, and maybe the more mollycoddling of kids, maybe, in terms of not getting out into bacteria and rolling around in the mud in the same way that, a lot of people might have been as kids, makes us more like sensitive or prone to pick up and get these allergies. But I do think the quality of food has something to do with that. And again, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a scientist. It's not my area of expertise, but it seems hard to believe that it couldn't be somewhat linked to other things that we're putting into our body that are triggering these negative reactions.
And that's the RFK Jr. Maha stance. And there's certain things that people, remember, my people that listen to the show are mostly in agriculture, and they're going to say, oh, God, RFK. Some of this stuff, though, he got some pretty good points here. Have we overused glyphosate? Yeah. Do we need to go and sue the makers of glyphosate out of existence? No. Do we need petroleum-based food dyes in our kids' cereal? No. Does anybody making your kids eat those? No. So I can see the whole thing both ways, but in general, I've heard a little bit about the food allergy, and obviously he's off on vaccines now. Yeah, I'd say that there's more of a awareness now than there would have been in the old days. And you always knew those kids that, like, they were kind of sickly, and it's like, well, shit, maybe they're just getting food that doesn't agree with them. And especially the poorer you were, there's a lot of poor kids that went to my elementary school. And I'm like, looking back, man, that poor kid just was getting fed stuff that worse than didn't agree with them.
That's literally what happened. That was my exact situation. I started randomly when I was like 4 or 5 years old, just getting sick after eating food. My parents hadn't a clue what was wrong with me. My poor mother was making like the best quality homemade brown bread, as every Irish mom does, and that was like, to strengthen me up. And ironically, it was making me sicker and sicker. And the Doctors America, Doctors Ireland, the word celiac and gluten didn't come up once for 5 years, until finally someone was like, have you tested for that actually? And we are like, what's that? And there you go. And as soon as I went off it, boom, like finally unsickly again. And yeah, to your point on RFK, again, what I like or what I hope is going to start slowly coming back is he makes some points that I thoroughly disagree with, and some points that I thoroughly agree with. And fortunately, to your exact examples you gave, there are some things that I think he's on the money with, and I think most people agree with him on those points as well. And he's getting some momentum behind this, and we might talk about in a second, but regulation is coming in this space. We talk about a lot of this in hypothetical and whatnot. This is already becoming a reality in terms of what is changing in the landscape, and it's only going to snowball from here as well.
Okay, well, you said we're going to head into it. I appreciate you almost took the role as host of this show and put on your back there, Dylan. Well, in places it won't come. Obviously, in the developing world, and it's not going to happen anywhere. But again, in a mature economy, and again, you talk about the lifestylers that are 1/5 of the customer base, let's say, and then the reality of lawsuits are going up. You said a 400% increase in food allergy based lawsuits, and then you talked about intolerances. And I would, again, I don't go crazy on being in any way anti-agriculture or food, but RFK's point about the amount of stuff we're tossing in the food, there's some reality to that. It was for shelf life, it was for appearances, it was for saleability, transportability, where an egg is still an egg, but the egg that's tossed in this other concoction with 17 other things, and 4 of those are preservatives, etc. I'm not anti-science, but I think that there's a very plausible reality to RFK's thing about this, that we've gotten food highly processed is the words now, right? Highly processed, ultra processed, I guess is the word they're calling it. They're putting some stuff in there that's not good for us, and I think that I can see this going together. And so when you say regulation is coming, I'm guessing what you're going to tell me, Dylan, is it's not just the RFK bandwagon. It's going to come because there's some real, maybe not the lifestylers, they've got the money and whatever, but there's some real risk here. And that's where I think you're going to see it from, is because there's going to be enough of a push for it from the reality, not the lifestylers necessarily, but what do you think? Why does it come about?
Yeah, it's consumer demand ultimately. So you've federal and you've state. So the first, like to date in the US, there's been zero regulation around food allergies in restaurants or food service. The only regulation that they brought in a decade ago was about nutrition. So you had to display calorie and all the nutritional panel information if you were a chain at 20 plus locations. Gavin Newsom in October signed in California the first bill that relates to food allergies in restaurants, effective 1 July next year. So 26. Every restaurant group with 20 plus locations in the country, where at least one is in California, will be required to label their menus for the major 9 allergens, physical and digital menus. So that's a big step change in terms of, don't get me wrong, a number of the major enterprise groups have already been publishing this information on PDFs on their website and whatnot. But this now is making it regulated, and meaning that every group that falls in this net must do it. And I think this is going to have a pretty big impact across the spectrum of food service or food ecosystem, because now the restaurants are going to go back to their distributors and suppliers and say, okay, I need this allergen information in a clearer format. Like I need to put this on my menu. It's the law. The distributors and suppliers are going to go back up to the manufacturers and say, well, you didn't fill out that spec sheet correctly, or you're not giving me that information, or I need this in the format, or blah blah blah. Something looks wrong here. It's going to perpetuate all the way up and down, because it's now a liability issue. Who's at fault if an end consumer gets that allergen in error? Everyone's going to try and pass the buck. So there's going to be a lot of stuff going on now in the background in terms of indemnification clauses in contracts.
Yeah.
There's going to be a massive scramble by everyone in the line to get this stuff in order, and it's going to be a bit of a mess, I predict, trying to get this up and running. Food service in particular, like some of these major food service operators are doing 50 billion in revenue a year. They have major operations. California is one of the biggest hubs. I can only imagine the chaos that's going to be in their back end trying to get this organized.
Well, let's go one step further. Yeah, you're talking about like the Cisco's or whatever.
Yeah.
Like basically, if you're sitting in a restaurant eating, there's a very good chance a refrigerated truck pulls in. It doesn't have to be refrigerated. There's plenty of stuff that's non-refrigerated. Backs up to the store, restaurant, and takes a gurney full of, a skid truck full of all kinds of stuff in there. My God, Dylan, some of that stuff, again, it's been through 7 different places from the farm to the Cisco. They're the distributor. And then it has to get, like you said, then it goes into the kitchen, and then there's a contaminant issue in the kitchen. Like you said, chef comes in and says, you know what, that stuff really needs a shot of soy sauce. Boom, you gave that a great example. Now we're also talking about origins. Some of the stuff uses avocados that came from Mexico, and maybe it was cheaper to process the avocados into an avocado paste in Mexico. And maybe the facility that does that in Mexico also decided a long time ago this stuff travels better if we toss this flour agent into it and it has gluten. And like, who the hell thought there'd be gluten in avocados? I mean, I can see where there's not only degrees of complexity, but my God, the flow chart on this thing is more complex than, I mean, you're talking about a flow chart with 14 different boxes and arrows going around.
100%. And even a simpler example, Cisco pull up, and that morning in the distribution center, they've ran out of the Hellman's mayo that they normally deliver to that restaurant every week. So they say, oh, we're going to give you the Heinz mayo instead because we have that in stock.
Yep.
Happens all the time. The simple substitution. But now that mayo has a different allergen makeup to the other mayo, and boom, restaurant is serving, unwittingly serving again an allergen that they didn't know that's in now half their dishes. So there's so many places and examples where this can and does already go wrong. And now I think a lot more attention is going to be paid to this to mitigate against these and try and find ways and processes and just methods of communication and data transfer that should happen in an automated fashion, frankly, where this information will have to be correct, and the margin for errors is just going to disappear, and it's going to go a lot further than California.
Yeah, rapid fire. First off, you think that this thing of, oh, well, we'll just go away from this? I can see food trends change. Instead of gluten being the boogeyman, it'll be GMOs. And if it's not GMOs, it'll be climate change. If not climate change, it'll be, who knows? There's always going to be some. Yeah. In an affluent country, there's always going to be a sect of our society that has the time and the money to decide that they've got a problem with something. Okay. So you think that so that could be the lifestyle, it could be the reality. You don't think that food allergies somehow all of a sudden improve? I don't. Do you?
No, I think
they get worse because, as you said, less exposure to it, more detection of it. Kids aren't rolling around in the mud and
the data shows steady year on year increase in the number of people with food allergies. I can only speak to the data. It's only going one way.
Yeah, and then from a litigation standpoint, I can't imagine that somehow we don't remain a litigious society. We've been a litigious society for a long time, and by God, if you base it on the billboards along the highway telling you, some jackass attorney with a sledgehammer telling you to call the hammer because somebody owes you money, the litigation stays.
Yeah, and 2 points on that. One is, just for context, every 30 seconds, someone in the US goes to the emergency room with an anaphylactic incident. So, point I'm trying to make here is this is not every month someone gets. This happens every minute of every day. Every minute of every day, someone in the United States goes to an emergency room because of a food allergy incident? With anaphylactics, yes, correct.
Anaphylactic, so the person that doesn't know what that means.
That's the reaction that food allergy or like a bee sting, or it's like it's where your throat starts. It's where your
throat swells up, or that's
exactly
the kind of stuff that people talk about using an EpiPen for, or something like that.
Exactly. So that's when you have a food allergy and you have too much of that allergen for whatever your level of whatever is. That's the kind of medical event that occurs.
Okay, so we got the fact that you said first off, we're not going to get all of a sudden more rugged. You said the spike is going up. We said the litigation, you don't think that changes. The third thing is the medical reality. Yeah. You're probably not going to the emergency room because it's all in your head. You probably are going there because you truly do have a swelling throat or whatever the hell the thing is.
But back to your question on litigation, it's a real shame in one way, right? Because one of the reasons I think restaurants have I've tried to sway away from doing this is a fear of being sued if they get it wrong. And there's some real bad actors out there who a restaurant is doing everything they can to do the right thing. There's one minor slip up and someone slaps them with a lawsuit despite that restaurant legitimately trying to do the wrong thing. And that, I know you can't change society, but that really bothers me because it's how can you encourage an industry to get better if you punish or try and come after the ones who are legitimately doing their best? And again, those are just malicious people that unfortunately are out there, and they are constantly looking for ways of suing someone. But
you don't think they're Irish, do you? Do you think those malicious bastards are Irish?
They're not. We don't sue anyone. Okay, we're it's taboo nearly to sue people in Ireland. You'd want to really piss someone off to get sued at home, which is why it's so weird culturally here. But I think the ultimately when you have a documented source of truth, it reduces the number of mistakes that happen, which will reduce the number of lawsuits that occur.
Yeah.
That's basic logic.
Yeah. And then since again, my people are in agriculture, I mean, I don't know that I don't know that we're doing. I heard it speculated that the gluten thing got a big spike 15, 12 years ago when the gluten became the new boogeyman because we had been putting gluten in stuff as a bonding agent. I heard that about processed food. I'm not a food scientist. I took one food science class at Purdue, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. But there is some thing there. But I don't know that agriculture, I think the big change that agriculture needs to make is probably a little bit on that Maha road of cleaning up the food a little bit. And I don't mean that it's unsanitary. I mean getting the ingredients more purified, I guess, meaning not have 17 ingredients when just maybe 50 years ago it would have had 4. And I think that's maybe where we go.
Forget food allergies for a second. You're on the completely right track. Modern day consumer, there's 3 main things. There's personalization, there's transparency, and now health conscious. Look at the food as medicine movement. The function health, the superpowers of the world, which will tell you, of the 100 different foods you're eating, what you shouldn't eat. You look at the Gen Zers, they're not drinking anywhere near as much anymore. They're way more health conscious. So your modern day consumer is 10 times more cognizant of those ingredients, of what they're putting in their body. They're using apps like Yuka, which is giving them a health score of like, this is a 20 out of 100 or 40 out of 100. Yeah. I don't know where that calculation is coming from, but someone's making that calculation and consumers are relying on it. So I think you're 100% correct, even aside from food allergies. Yeah. The consumers are going to be more and more conscious of the quality of those ingredients. And if it is low quality, I think they're going to shy away from some of those foods.
Yeah. Well, my sad part there when you talked about the Gen Zers is I'm afraid they're going to be looking at their watch or their device, and whatever it tells them to do, they'll do it. Only eat egg whites while you're jumping off a cliff, kind of a thing. And then, of course, the part that's got me more depressed is when you said they don't drink beer. I think they're missing out on a real opportunity there for happiness. And you, being an Irish guy, you can appreciate that.
Listen, everything in moderation, right? I think what you lose out in social skills by just going out to bars and socializing with your friends and whatnot. I think, I believe that the trade-off of the health of not drinking a few beers is far more damaging on your mental health than it will be on your long-term physical health.
Every March 17th, I meet my friend Mac. Imagine that, an Irish guy named Mac. I wear my kilt, which he gave me, because I'm only a fraction Irish, and I go and drink black and tans because it's March 17th, and by golly, you're supposed to wear a kilt and drink black and tans with your buddy Mac.
I think that sums up what you're supposed to do on March 17 perfectly. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Perfect. So I'm intrigued by this. I think it's very interesting. We covered, I think, very, very well. And I think we also, again, admitted that this is not going away. So we're going to be seeing more about this. If somebody wants to contact you, Dylan, where do they find you?
Yeah, our website's foodini.co for anyone in restaurants, food service, or just or food tech that wants to just check us out. LinkedIn is a good place to get me. My email is dylan@Foodini, Foodini.com. Love talking to people in industry, answer any questions people have, or just give more insights on the space. Feel free to reach out, anyone who resonates with what we're talking about.
Fantastic. His name is Dylan McDonnell. The company's called Foodini. We're talking about food allergies, and I think we covered it very, very well. Remember, if you have a topic you'd like me to cover here at the Business of Agriculture, we're in our 9th year of these episodes. In our 9th year, I told you to please go to the YouTube channel and hit subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. You'll see my commentary videos that I do about the industry, a lot of out there kind of stuff, very forward thinking, and sometimes people don't like to hear it, but sometimes it's got a little bit of a, here's some reality. So anyway, check that out. You can also check out my show on Acres TV. Please share this with somebody that can benefit from it. I very much appreciate you being here, Dylan.
Thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed the chat.
Till next time, thanks for being here. I'm Damian Mason, and this is the Business of Agriculture. This episode of the Business of Agriculture was brought to you by my friends at New Fields Ag. American made, American known, focusing on the success of the American farmer. That's New Fields Ag, offering a complete lineup of high-performing biological products for you, the American farmer. Visit newfieldsag.com for more.